Hello all, and welcome to the newest episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. I'm Austin. I'm a knockout. Watched a lot of wrestling.
I'm David. I'm a noob. I have comparatively watched not that much wrestling. Although I will say after this last week, I can now say that I have read wrestling.
Indeed, because today this was going to be, as of like 2 weeks ago, this was going to be the return to form after our 25th episode. We were going to finish the summer of Punk until we were reached out. I'm going to repeat this little spiel because just in case you couldn't get through the entirety of the Hulk Hogan thing, I get it. But so much went down, you might have missed me talking about this.
Entirely fair. Please, by all means.
Yeah, so we were reached out to over Twitter by Suspicious Behaviors Productions. They wrote an indie comic book about wrestling, and they wanted us to review the book on the podcast, or at least talk about it in any way that we felt that we wanted to. And I figured let's just do a full review then.
Episode. Absolutely. This is super cool. When Austin messaged me about this, because he's the one that saw the DM first, I kind of like couldn't believe it. I was like, that's there's no way, right? There's got to be something up with this. There's no way.
I googled this real hard before I even sent it to David. I was like, I got to know that this is real.
Yeah, like I was like, God, I hope we're not being like fucked with or scammed or anything. But no, we weren't. It's legit.
We're too small time for this.
I know. I don't know how they caught wind of us, but here we are. They were kind enough to send us over a Dropbox link of the 6-issue miniseries of Wrestle
of Invasion from Planet WrestleTopia. Yeah, it was pretty wild too, because I was like, when they said review, the DM said review copy, and I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but like, you know, like I was thinking about it in terms of like how like Netflix reviewers get like half the series, for example, when they do reviews of that. So I was like, oh, we're probably gonna get like 2 or 3 issues of this, right? Yeah. No, they sent the whole 6-issue miniseries, which So I was like, oh hell yeah. We got to do this now.
The generosity was greatly appreciated. So Suspicious Behavior, if you are listening, thank you so much. We had I think I already speak for both of us when I say we were absolutely honored that you reached out to us, and I'm sure we both got a huge kick out of reading this comic, as we will delve into in just a second.
Yeah, so I guess let's talk about format here for a second before we keep going, because this is a little bit different from our usual format. Normally what I do is I bring to David what episode of wrestling we're going to talk about, and I explain what's going on, and then we kind of pause the show, watch it, and then come back and talk about it. But this time, obviously, there's not time for us to do this over video format for a whole 6-issue comics. So we both read this beforehand. So like, how are we going to format the show? And I determined that like what we should do is our front half is going to be a spoiler-free review of the comic book. I will try my best. I've never had to do a review in that format before, so I'll try to be careful. But basically, I think we're gonna give our overall thoughts and a lot of what we liked about it, without giving away any of the real plot stuff. And then in the back half, I'll give a warning for when we're going to start talking about spoilers. We'll go into it more in depth of like all the stuff that happens.
Absolutely. So if you haven't read the comic yet and you would like to, it can be you were able to find it, right? Google search or something. What was the method by which?
Right now it's in a bit of a weird space where it was on Comixology, but they had some issues, and so currently that link doesn't work. To my knowledge, they are working on getting that redone. And then, this comic came out in 2017. From what I had a very limited physical release. Obviously, like, it's an indie book about wrestling, so there's only so many copies of those around. But it's my understanding that they're trying to get a Kickstarter in the near future to kind of get another physical release. But right now, it's kind of a keep your eye out on Comixology, because they are looking to get that available digitally again.
Yeah. So if you want to hold out for that, maybe hold off from the spoiler review. But if you just kind of want to get the get the full ride through, write it or not, then stick around this whole time, and we got you covered, baby.
Yeah, and I'm personally gonna try to keep an eye out for when that drops again. I would like to buy it on Comixology, even though they did give us the review to give us the full book as a way of showing my financial support. And we will keep you all updated on that too when that does drop.
Absolutely. Personally, I definitely want to go in on the physical release.
Mhm.
Already, just like um, it's fun stuff. It'll be fun stuff to kind of have in hand and even kind of like display a little bit. Like um, to kind of give one of my very first thoughts about this whole thing. The artwork for this comic is just an absolute treat. So getting to
Mhm.
show that off in any way, I think would definitely be cool in a physical form.
Yeah, the art in this book is really solid. Like I think it is it's very colorful in a way that it needed to be, and in that way that wrestling is. It's very colorful in a way that works for wrestling and for aliens.
Yeah. It's got this great style to it too,
Mhm,
where it kind of straddles the line between like um realistic kind of like person modeling, but still kind of keeping it
mhm.
cartoony and a little over the top. Like all of the wrestlers, of course, are these giant 8-pack, carrying buff dudes, who got just big chunky faces. Um, and everybody's like the picture, pretty much the picture of like physical prowess throughout the book. But they all have these really cool, like fun, distinct designs too. The humans, they all keep really distinct and fun ways.
Mhm.
Their designs for some of the like wrestler concepts in this are a ton of fun, and there are some very clear like homages to like past wrestlers in here.
Oh,
Um,
I made a list of every reference I could think of
I
in
had
the
I had
for
thought about that.
for the spoiler cut.
Yeah, I'd thought about that, but I was like, but I knew there were probably a zillion that were flying over my head, so I was like, I'm just gonna leave
Mhm.
that to Austin. No, but the WrestleTopians too, the aliens that invade, they're all pretty much like basic humanoid sort of
I
creatures. The main thing that sets them apart is they all have very distinct like colorations to them, and that's what kind of makes it fun for
Yeah,
me to look at.
I agree. It's super easy to like it's easy to keep track of who's who.
Yeah,
If and I was going to make a joke about how it's funny that for a bunch of wrestling aliens, they sure do have a lot of designs based on like Earth culture
yeah,
as it
I
would
know.
fit for wrestling.
They
Which
they
we'll talk more about that in the spoiler part.
yeah. Um, what I found was interesting too was like the art style kind of like evolved over the 6 issues. I don't
Mhm,
know like the span over which the 6 issues were released off the top of my head,
mhm,
but the design kind of evolved a little bit from issue 1 to issue 6, where issue 1 it was very kind of like um simple outliney, um the kind of flat kind of comic book poppy designs.
mhm,
Um, and then as the issues went on, the models evolved a little bit. There was like more kind of like shading. It was a
mhm,
little more three-dimensional, I think. Um, Even some of the character designs shifted a little bit too. The biggest one I noticed was between I think like issues 3 and 4. Um, 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, somewhere in there. Um, the commissioner of the kind of main wrestling company in this world,
mhm.
AWF, Dick
Dick
Drazen.
Dick Drazen. I
Dick
just thought it was Drazen, but I guess
Drazen. Oh yeah. Either
I mean
way.
I guess it's I guess there's not a wrong answer.
Yeah. His design like kind of changes from one issue to another. And it actually took me a second. I had to go back to the previous issue to be like, wait, this is the same guy, right? Um, so it was kind of interesting to see like and I looked, it was the same artist. The same artist was
Mhm.
credited for all 6 issues. So it's just kind
Mhm.
of interesting to see how they kind of like changed and adapted their models as they I guess grew more confident in their style and everything.
Yeah, and I think that, I think that I want to really talk about the art and the action sequences.
Yes.
Because I thought the action sequences in this book were phenomenal. It might have been like like there's a lot I like about this book, but like I had to pick like one thing to be like, dude, this comic was awesome, because I'd probably start with the action sequences, because and obviously you needed to hit those because this is a book about wrestling.
Wrestling.
Right. And I felt like all of them were really well put together. And it was super easy to like follow the action and know what's happening. And they had some really cool setups and sequences.
I would agree with that. Austin's far more of a like comics person than I am. So my like ability to speak with authority on the medium is not as
Mhm.
developed. For me, I always struggle a little bit with like action sequences in comics, just because like I don't even know, just something about them, and I think something about how my brain kind of registers them. It's always like a little hard for me to follow, and I think that was kind of the
Mhm.
case for me here too. But what I was able to appreciate with this comic was there was just a lot of like cool little details that went into sequences like that. Like what
Mhm.
Austin said, a lot of the setups were really cool. It was kind of fun with this comic because it felt like it felt like almost it took advantage of its medium to be everything like WWE and its contemporaries like wish it could be like taken to its fullest extreme. Like they had fights in the desert, they had fights on trains, in bars, like all of these like phenomenal fun like setups that you didn't just see like all these fights in ring. um
No, there's only like there's two I think there's like two fights, full length fights in a ring. And
yeah, and a few other like mini sequences here and there.
yeah, but
um
most of the fights take place like in the wider world. And that made it very fun, because you don't really like wrestling moves are obviously like super not good in a real fight,
mhm.
but they let you buy into this fantasy world
Yeah,
where you can like just casually do pile drivers
yeah,
in a
I know.
random street fight.
Well, the other thing I really appreciated too was like, on top of like the setting work, like going even more on the detail work, like there were
Mhm.
so many like little touches of how they displayed like the physicality of like the moves that were being done. Things like when people got chopped to the chest, like you could there were times you saw
Mhm.
like ripples. They did like little cartoony ripples on like the pecs. Or
Mhm.
something that I found really cool was they managed to give at least a few of the wrestlers some like really clearly distinct styles, which is hard to do with still motion images.
Yeah.
Um, but there were definitely characters in there that were able to um feel distinct not only in their design but in the way they fought.
Mhm.
And the fact they were able to illustrate that
I
was a
have I
ton
have
of
I
fun.
have one wrestler in mind that definitely I think has this
I think I
play.
know exactly who you're talking about.
Mhm. Um, as for the plot, I think it's kind of like perfect. The premise is like this perfect B movie sci-fi cheese.
Yes.
And while honestly, the main character, and we'll go to a lot deeper into this. Actually, I kind of liked the main character's arc, the arc of Rory Landell. Um, like the first time I read it, it felt it felt a little rushed in a way that I was going to like make fun of, is like in that wrestling way of like,
Yeah.
oh, like of a good guy, like the bad guy just has to like do one good thing and suddenly they're a good guy forever and ever. But
Yeah.
upon rereading it, because I guess as a spoiler warning for what it is, I read the book once as a just to kind of how enjoy it for what it was, and then I
Mhm.
read it again to actually like take notes for this podcast. And on my second read through, I think I did notice a lot of like small things that built up to his inevitable kind of redemption arc as a character.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. Plot wise, I like you said, I think like sci-fi B movie is exactly correct, and I think that's exactly what they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the fun thing for me was like all the little storytelling devices they employed. They had like all these characters. They had a whole bunch of characters that like each had individual flashback sequences, and like the way the plot was structured felt like some sort of like movie straight out of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even like the way in which like kayfabe both exists and doesn't in this universe, um, is very much like the we're gonna like acknowledge the thing, but still um still have it be like still have all the cheesy tropes like unironically there.
Yeah,
Um,
it follows the wrestling movie grand tradition of being like of acknowledging that wrestling is fake to some degree, but at the same time then unironically having people do wrestling stuff in ways that only make sense if it was real.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I'm not saying that as a negative. I think that's a very
No,
fun aspect of wrestling movies.
I and what was fun for me too was like contemplating the kayfabe of this. Like it like in universe, is this just like a giant like wrestling movie that the AWF that the AWF put out? Um like it's so funny like to think about because again, they clearly allude to like, you know, the outcomes to matches being predetermined and stuff and like um
They,
the fakeness of
he,
it all.
like he explicit like yeah like the fur I think I think for the this is a minor plot point for only the first issue, so I'll go ahead and say
Yeah.
it is that like in the first issue they talk about like a title match being predetermined, and they bring that up. I think they bring that up in another issue too for a different context. And
Yeah.
like in one issue they talk about a match not being a work. So
Yeah.
like wrestling is clearly fake in the context of this universe, even though that wrestling moves still work outside of that.
Yeah, and, like, all of these people are insanely adept at, like, pickup fighting
Mhm.
outside of the ring in real life against, like, aliens that actually, like, fight with real moves and
Yeah,
don't, like, have
yeah,
kayfabe.
the alien wrestling isn't a work. I don't think their alien wrestling is fake.
No, yeah, no, alien wrestling is very much legit, and they take it very seriously, which is another really fun aspect to this is, like, the aliens are, it's again, it's so fun to see, like, all of the outlandish, extremes to which the aliens take their wrestling culture just by, like, the character designs and, by the way they all are, like Austin said, like, reflective of kind of lot of wrestling tropes that we see like on TV nowadays. But they're so serious about what they're here to do. Like
Mhm.
the conceit of this book, as it was as it's kind of advertised, is when a wrestler declares himself on TV the galactic
Galactic
champion
champion.
as a bit. A bunch of aliens pick up on the signal, aliens from the planet WrestleTopia, and their great leader, who is the actual galactic champion, takes offense to this and decides to take to Earth to challenge the fake galactic champion for the title. And they none of them like realize it's almost kind of like Galaxy Quest-ish. And like the aliens pick up the signal of the TV show from Earth, don't realize it's fiction, and take it so deeply seriously that like all of Earth gets embroiled in this intergalactic plot. And it's such a delightful premise that just the
Okay,
entire time you can't help but crack up.
I lost my complete internet connection for a second there, like even on my end. But I don't think we missed any of the explanation of
I
like
don't
what
think
happened.
so either. The same thing happened last year and we didn't lose it on audio. So um no,
Yeah,
but yeah, the premise to this whole thing is such a treat. And like I said, what's fun is just seeing the juxtaposition of the earthlings that for all of them this is a fictional business, and the aliens who are like, this is real and this is the backbone of our culture and this is intergalactic political implications.
it's
um
still real to us. Damn it.
I know it's so funny to just like watch the melodrama kind of overtake Earth, but unironically this time.
No, there is the absolute insane subplot that goes on with the aliens.
Yes.
I was like, just like, what? What? This is how this is going to go down, huh? And
Yeah.
like on that note, I want to say is that there are I is it as much as it plays into like cheesy cliches that I should have seen coming. I still didn't see quite a few of the things that happens in this story coming. Like we'll talk a lot more about that in the spoiler half.
Yeah. I
But
mean
this
that
book managed to surprise me,
the
even if it follows a pretty tropey kind of plot structure.
Well, the thing about this book that I think is its greatest strength. You talked about if you were to talk about, read this book because like it's awesome because this. And you said the action sequence. I think for me, my answer to that would be, read this book because the writing is awesome. For me, this book's greatest strength is the fact that its writing is able to emulate that of like a pro wrestling show to a T. Like when we're having there are sometimes when we're having backstage segments that it's all like a lot more like real and people are talking like normal people,
Mhm.
but once the aliens come down, it all turns into like wrestling writing where everyone is speaking in these like grand sweeping powerful declarations and we have all these like kind of cliche tropey lines that get thrown in that like people use as catchphrases and all the characters have their own distinct way of speaking that very much feel like these cartoon character wrestling sort of things. The entire thing, it does such a great job at emulating the way in which wrestling is written that it just feels like you're reading an episode of like an especially like high production value show.
Oh, absolutely. It all just kind of works in this really great way. It's honestly this it again is this amazing like overall package of work that I think definitely as a wrestling fan it's the kind it's a book worth reading.
Mhm.
David would speak more to somebody who isn't necessarily a wrestling fan.
I think as a non-wrestling fan, I mean, like, here's the thing. I got a lot out of this because I have now spent 25 episodes like
Mhm.
coming to understand the world of wrestling. I'm still a noob compared to Austin, but I've got a
Mhm.
lot. So that helped me out a lot. But even as someone who doesn't get every single reference, if you are even if you're not like super familiar with the world of wrestling, I think it takes some baseline knowledge to like really appreciate this book. But I think
Mhm.
even if you're not, if you're just a comic fan and you're looking for like fun um a fun kind of like pulpy read with some really like fun artwork and just kind of some great silly bits and um of a digestible look into this world because
Mhm.
they do make it like accessible. Like even if you're not like an expert, like they they kind of do enough to let you know generally how the world of wrestling tends to function.
Mhm.
Um that I think even if you don't know all that much about wrestling, you could still get a kick out of reading this for some of its just broader fun aspects because they just put a lot of heart and soul into like making this like just a fun, easy read.
Mhm. I think that's a good stopping point for our spoiler free or mostly spoiler free take on it.
I would
So
think so.
yeah, I'm gonna do a 5 second kind of pause here. If you don't want to spoil yourself anymore, if you want to wait until again, as a reiterate, and I'll reiterate this at the end, that it is going to be back up on Comixology soon, and they're also looking to try to fundraise to do another physical release. So if you want to wait for that, then you can just stop us right there. Come check us out next week when we will cover SummerSlam 2011. Uh, and see you guys then in 5.
All right, spoiler time,
Spoiler
baby.
time, the aliens worked themselves into a shoot.
My God, uh, the the plot to this thing is so absolutely like wild, bonkers, off the wall. There's so much going on. I
Mhm.
don't even know like where to begin. Again, so we begin with main character Terry Lendell. Um,
Rory.
Rory Lendell.
Rory.
Jesus, no,
Harry
Terry's
is
his
his
dad.
dad.
Terry's his dad. Pardon me.
Great
Rory
start.
Lendell. Yeah, great start. Jesus. We begin with our main character Rory Lendell. In the I believe the 90s, yeah, technically in the 80s, in the mid
84.
80s,
Yeah.
in
So
1984.
yeah. So what happens is that apparently the aliens get Earth broadcast on tape delay. Because
Yeah.
because it's 19 the inciting incident happens in 1984, but the aliens don't get that broadcast until 1999, which ties in great to the Y2K stuff.
Oh my god. Well, it's really fun too because the way I was probably one of the most surprising aspects for me for this book was how well it plays with time. We jump back and forth between eras a lot. And not only is it kind of like a fun little narrative device to like go to some flashbacks and then to flash forward to like quote unquote modern day. But on top of that, there's all this great little attention to detail when they jump around like from decade to decade. Because this book, what cracks me up, especially for our podcast where we have a sampler platter of jumping between eras, this book does a really great job kind of emulating the landscape of wrestling from decade to decade.
Yes, I die. This is jumping ahead. I thought we might do this issue to issue, and we still can, but I'm going to jump ahead to one of the later issues when they have the 90s video game. And it's called like AWF Anarchy Rules or something like that.
Something like that.
It felt like AWF 99 upside your head. I was like, this sounds like an ECW's. This sounds like an ECW Attitude Era titling. And I was like, that's so they did a really good job of making the 80s wrestlers feel like 80s wrestlers and the 90s wrestlers feel like 90s wrestlers.
Very true. Same with like the announcers. They kind of switch aesthetic from era to era a little bit. I want to get more into the announcers later too because they are a ton of fun.
I feel like the best time to talk about them is issue 6 is the last one when we get to the big show.
Yeah. We see like wrestling in the 80s. We see that Rory's dad Terry was a wrestler in the 70s.
And he felt like a 70s wrestler too. He's got this very basic outfit. He does the torture rack, which is like he felt like an old school 70s wrestler too.
Yeah. And Rory, we see Rory go from this
Rory, I have a list of like pastiches that I personally saw in these wrestlers.
I mean, I think
Rory is no one individually. I think he's like 80s wrestling, 80s heel wrestler as a art form. Like he's like Ric Flair mixed in. He's like any cocky, arrogant 80s Southern wrestling heel.
Well, I even saw like a little bit of like Hulk Hogan in him here and there. Just as like design wise when we're in the 90s is like the handlebar mustache and like
that's a fair point.
As he like starts to turn babyface as it were over the course of the comic, his arc, he kind of has a similar kind of dude bro sort of cadence as Hogan did. But definitely early on he's got this great like early 80s like, you know, punk heel sort of vibe to him. That is a total treat.
No. Okay. Issue 1. I thought the cover with Manifest Destiny looming overhead was really cool.
That was
striking
awesome.
Imagery for a first issue. Which I guess let's go ahead and say it. The main villain's name is Manifest Destiny. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. I think my favorite cover was episode 3. Something about
Dick Grayson in the glass with the
Dick Grayson in the glass. Like something about just like the way he's drawn. I don't know why they switched up the design for Drayson. I kind of liked him better in like the first 3 episodes. His design, he's definitely a lot more kind of like McMahon-y in how they originally designed him to kind of what he turns into, or at least it feels like it to me. He's got this great kind of devilish, you know, charm to him. That one's a ton of fun.
I laughed really hard at the fact that they opened with the Ephesians quote about we wrestle not with the principalities of man, blah blah blah. I was like, I was dying of laughter at that.
See, I didn't know it was a trope, but I wasn't like surprised that it
Well,
was
it's
like a
not really a trope. I just thought it was like a clever, like you make using a biblical quote to make this book make it all sound more
yeah,
like fantastical, and using that particular Ephesians quote, which uses the language of wrestling, like we
yeah.
wrestle with. I'm like,
We
amazing.
wrestle with and like the belt we wear around our waist too. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no way. Um, the belt of truth buckled around your waist. Like, come
Mhm.
on. Since
Like,
when is the Bible prefiguring pro wrestling? That's awesome.
yeah. And then I'm gonna be honest, like half of my notes are like quotes that I just thought were great.
Oh God.
But like we start with, he's in his dressing room, kind of like because originally Rory Landell is booked to beat Boy Scout Bob Schultz for the AWF title, which I guess go ahead and start with the references there. The AWF is clearly like a mixture of names between the AWA, the American Wrestling Association, and the WWF.
WF. Yeah.
WWF and AWA, but in the name, like the
Yeah.
AWA is there.
Yeah. And it has it does a good job of being like, insert pro wrestling company here, just kind of having that general aesthetic to it. Something I did
Yeah,
appreciate was there seemed to be in this world for this being presumably like the mainstream wrestling company of the world. The lady wrestlers were treated with seemed to be treated with at least some semblance of dignity here. Um,
yeah,
there aren't that many like prominently featured, but there are a few, and you kind of get the feeling like they're allowed to actually be like characters and fighters rather than just like hot.
yeah, definitely. Some of the other the wrestling references I use, I put Bob Schultz here because he feels like Bob Backlund, who was the he was the Hulk Hogan before Hulk Hogan in this
Okay,
timeline. And he kind of got phased out in that way of like he was very much this like howdy doody, straight laced, baby face, clean shaven, good guy kind of character. That's why I felt like Boy Scout Bob was like, oh, that's like Bob Backlund, right?
yeah.
And it's like the perfect era for him to get phased out because he did kind of get phased out when WWE just started to decide to be more like rock and rolly. And it was like this,
Absolutely.
we need somebody cooler than Bob Backlund.
Yeah. Although I will say, design wise, we see at one point and we can talk about this in a second, but we see at one point like a trading card of him. And the way he's drawn looks aesthetically very like John Cena-esque too. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a
Mhm.
bit of homage in there too, even if it's not quite, appropriate for the era.
Yeah. Um, I wrote shipwreck Rapinski here because he like makes a joke with his then girlfriend Linda,
Uh-huh.
who is also a wrestler, and he makes a joke about her about like who's she seeing and what wrestler she's seeing. She mentions shipwreck Rapinski, and he calls him a tugboat, and I was like, is that? I'm pretty sure that's a reference to the wrestler Tugboat.
Yeah, see, there are
I'm
so
pretty
many
sure.
like little things they throw in there that that were lost on
Mhm.
even me that a pro like Austin is just able to like completely pick up on.
Yeah, and then obviously Dick Grayson is Vince McMahon. He is
Obviously.
very blatant. Like he has like they don't like try to draw him as if he was Vince, but he in action and attitude he is so blatantly Vince McMahon.
Yeah, and what's really cool too is like they really play into um the heel boss thing
Mhm.
in a really kind of fun double-edged way in that like, you know, in the quote unquote real world of this comic where like actual shady business dealings are done. He's making like shady business deals with the aliens and just basically being super willing to sell out Earth for a cut of the profits, the merchandising rights, and being kind
that,
of like
that
the leader of Earth wrestling.
yeah, that conversation was funny where he like haggles for like all the stuff that isn't pay-per-view revenue.
I know. I think I like cackled out loud at that when I read it. And but also
And
like toward in the final issue, he's like in ring doing like announcing and stuff, and they kind of have like what I take to be sort of a kayfabe commissioner sort of thing going on with this one too. Where in the '80s they have this British guy who's like an announcer who some extra
Cecil
material
Steve
makes it
Mont,
yeah,
which
Cecil extra material makes it seem like he's like kayfabe commissioner, and then like by the 90s they have like Dresden out there as like, revealed as real commissioner, and he's out there on the mic and he gets beat up at one point and the audience is loving it. And I'm just like, hmm.
yeah,
What does that look like?
yeah. Let's see what I got here. I make a big note about they have a wrestling bear, which is obviously real wrestling history. They would have people wrestle bears as a special attraction back in the old days before animal abuse was a bigger problem, I guess. But then like this one is like a regular. This is the special attraction. He's like a real wrestler on the roster. He wins the TV title.
Yeah, which is so fucking funny. They do a great job just like kind of referencing back to it a whole bunch. And, and he loses to like this like moonshiner hillbilly.
Cousin Orville.
Cousin or who is who just gets made a mockery of by losing to this bear, and like for the rest of the series, people just kind of like passively shit on him whenever he gets brought up.
Yeah,
for losing the TV title to a bear.
Yeah, I wrote the wrist grab motif in the first issue. Like Rory does it to Dick, and then Dick does it later to Rory.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Don like Rory. Basically, they see this setup where Rory was going to win the title, and then Dick Grayson decides that for the sake of being family friendly, he changes his mind like the day of the show. Mm-hmm. And this would obviously make Rory mad, and he threatens to quit over it right then and there. And then Don tries to stop him from doing that.
Yeah,
and he gives him
his manager Don.
Don Fong Wong, who's doing an Asian stereotype gimmick, even though he's Hawaiian.
He's Hawaiian, and they like very much like point directly to that fact, and he's also like they also later allude to the fact that like before he was Don Fong Wong, he was playing a Native American character. Like, oh god, they really are just going hard on the if you're brown, we're gonna make you whatever race is convenient.
You're close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he tries to give him the speech, like to try to calm him down, and he tells the story of Swamp Gas Charlie, who I thought that story would actually pay off in some way. It really only doesn't until like the one sequence at the end.
Yeah,
but like I get what he's going for. He's trying to be like, "Hey kid, like you got something here. Don't throw it all away. You don't have a turkey farm at home. You got like real talent to do this."
Yeah.
Which, of course, he ignores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they have this cool motif, too. I don't know, like, how much a motif this is, but they're having this conversation in the midst of Don, like, having drug Rory into the locker room. The women's locker room, by the way. They all, like, clear out, and they're like, what the fuck? And they're having this conversation while Don is doing some sort of like massage maneuver on Rory's knee because it hurts. He's got a bad knee.
Which they that is a consistent part of this story.
Yeah, they allude to it later in that episode. It comes up a couple other times, and then like in the big match at the end, his knee crumbles and it gets him in a bad spot. And we have a sequence with Don kind of in relation to that.
I think it's a good scene to kind of set up their relationship of that. Like it's not just like he's a manager, he's legitimately a friend and mentor.
Yeah, exactly.
And but then he doesn't listen to him, and he finds his pizza box of like galactic pizza or whatever, it's some goofy pizza box, and he tapes it to his like trunks. And he comes out to his interview before the pay-per-view main event match, and he like cuts this promo about being the galactic champion because he don't need no world championship, and he just bounces after he just leaves the building after it's over.
He just kind of walks, and that was surprising for me. I didn't think like that's where the story was going to go. But it kind of becomes the perfect setup because it sets him up as kind of this perfect like 80s/90s again, sci-fi B movie protag of the washed up bum who
Mhm.
effectively has to become the savior of Earth. Um,
Yeah, I wrote Rory Landell walking out on his career and his girlfriend, tanking his own career and the career of his manager and friend out of pure selfishness and ego. I smell redemption arc.
true. Um, and redemption does he arc. Um,
No, but
over
first we got to skip ahead to
oh
15
yeah.
years.
Yes. Because again, they the little attentions to detail, the aliens don't get an automatic transmission. It takes 15 years to reach WrestleTopia. So 15 years later, Rory is now a washed up has been who with a bad temper and even worse behavior, who gets himself kicked out of every promotion that he works for. And Don is just kind of done with this shit. Don's still managing him 15 years later. It's just kind of like
Yeah,
slowly becoming done with this shit.
yeah, he's stuck wrestling a little person wrestler, Mini Macho, who will
Mini
become a
Macho.
regular, will become a wrestler, will become a regular feature. He's like a matador for
Yeah,
people.
Mini
Yeah, that's what
Macho is a
he's a matador.
delightful character. Mini Macho
Yeah,
made me super happy as a character because he feels like basically an homage to people to I mean like there's kind of like, the little person wrestling with luchador stuff that's there. He almost in a way though kind of felt like almost like an homage to Rey Mysterio in some respects, and I don't know, I
mhm.
felt vindicated somebody else is noticing like hey, here's this, smaller Hispanic wrestler with a lot of talent, um, who is probably the best wrestler in this whole crew. So let's give him like just all of the best fight scenes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he absolutely has pretty much all the coolest fight scenes as he regularly fights multiple guys and wins
Yeah.
purely due to his speed and guile. But he's wrestling Rory in a bingo hall and casino, and Rory gets drunk and breaks the table, and he gets
Yeah.
fired. And he basically is like that's the point where Don's like, yeah, I quit. Like literally, like when Rory's trying to suggest where they can go from here, he suggests Montana,
Hmm.
and Roy's like, you know what? Don's like, you know what? Screw this. I wanted to retire, which, I should have seen that as more of a red flag than I did. Than I did.
Ha! 50
I
is
didn't see that. I didn't see that as a red
2
flag at
weeks to
all the first time I
retirement.
read it. Yeah,
Oh
like,
no.
oh,
Yup.
yeah. But anyway, Rory eventually, and I make a note of this. I'll bring this up again for when we talk about issue 4. But this, how this plays out, repeats itself later in a way that I didn't pick up on until the second time I read it.
Hmm.
But that's where Rory's at. Is he basically walks out on Dawn? Is like, you know what? Screw this, man. I'll
Yeah.
go on my own if you don't want to be here. And then we get to WrestleTopia, and I made a note that Adrian Polaris looks positively Bowie-esque.
That yeah, we have like a very I even like what read him in a British accent when we got there.
Yeah,
Um,
but he makes the reveal to Manifest Destiny that some dude on Earth is claiming to be the galactic champion.
yep. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, Manifest gets very indignant about this and is like, "It's time to conquer Earth." Um, and
Mhm.
conquer Earth they do. The
Yeah,
aliens start just kind of like appear in droves on Earth. And as we see them, they just kind of start beating the shit out of random people, like
yeah,
anyone we see.
that was a hilarious sequence. It starts with them sending their probes to create a steel cage around the planet
That
Earth.
that got me to like die of laughter.
But then they
Issue
all
2
land. Yeah.
opens or
Mhm.
almost or like opens after a flashback sequence with the
Which we'll
reveal.
talk about the flashback in a minute. But
Yeah,
first,
with the
the
reveal that they're building a
aliens.
steel cage around the planet Earth.
And then they all
Um,
show up, and the first scene we get is them at the White House, and they're doing like wrestling submission moves on Secret
I
Service
know.
people.
And then we see them also in like
And they just go
um
from there.
yeah, in like Egypt, and I'm assuming what appears to be like Iraq or something, or like somewhere in Asia. Oh no,
No,
Beijing. That's where it was.
yeah, they go
Beijing.
to Beijing.
Cairo, Beijing, Rio de Janeiro, um, all with, may I
Doing
add, like,
doing doing doing
appropriately
dives off of the Jesus statue.
and may I add, with all appropriately, like, the appropriately nationality like alien wrestlers. For some reason, like the alien wrestlers all have like nationalities and behaviors that are like directly comparable to that of like Earth characters. Like there's a
Yeah, good.
they're like
They got the
luchadors.
Soviet Russian wrestler.
Yeah, they have a
They got the
Russian one,
Soviet
which
Russian
was
dude.
like that's the part where I'm just kind of scratching my head. Like they've clearly never heard of Earth before because the Bowie looking motherfucker is like, he does the thing of like there's something going on a planet called Earth.
And why?
But they all like directly mimic Earth, Earth cultures and archetypes and stuff. So I'm like, how funny is it that they just happen to develop like directly parallel cultures? Just one's a lot more obsessed with wrestling, although maybe not that much more obsessed. Although we'll get into that in a second. It kind of reminded me of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror bit, where they meet Ken Kodos for the first time. And they're like, "You speak English," and they're going, we're actually speaking Chilean. By complete coincidence, our languages evolved to be the exact same."
Yeah,
that's kind of what I felt was going on here.
My notes on this sequence are like, by God, the carnage on the White House lawn.
I know.
I made their quote where your most hollowed arena of combat, the Sportatorium of St. Paul.
St. Paul. Which is where Rory had cut his "I Quit" promo.
Yeah.
15 years earlier.
And suplexing a camel.
And suplexing a camel, and Rory's off in some like cheap ass dive bar trying to get free drinks by extolling
he's doing his whole catchphrase bit, and the barkeep just doesn't give a fuck,
doesn't care. And then alien wrestlers come in, and like there's a luchador.
Aliens meet him in the bar.
Yeah, there's a luchador. There's I don't know, just kind of a flashy one, like kind of like a sort of pompous heel type probably. And yeah, the Russian one who has like an alien version of like the Soviet emblem on his unitard and speaks with like broken English. I think I have it right here. His like opening quote, which cracked me up. You are the rocking man, Rory Van. Yeah, it's so funny.
The rocking man, yes.
The rocking man. Roar.
Yeah,
and they even like spell it out like Rory.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And of course, you come with us now.
Yeah, he tries to like he just like a regular wrestling show. He's like, oh yeah, what's payout from main eventers?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Yeah, not noticing that they all have like weirdly colored skin. I guess he just thought they were in like body paint or something.
Yeah, and so they like, get in a bar fight, and it's pretty epic, but he does lose because it's 3-on-1.
Yeah.
And they kind of drag him out of the bar.
And that was the first moment I realized, like, wait, oh my God, we have like this thing where the wrestling that's the first time they show like the wrestling is like real with like the real wrestlers. Like Rory goes to town, like again he loses, but he still goes to town and goes hard, like pulling off legitimate moves against these guys, and it works to an extent. And that was kind of my first hint at like, oh man, we're going this route. Okay.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, is the issue technically starts with the backstory.
Yes.
It's Rory's tragic backstory.
Yes.
Where we learn he's kind of living in this like shack in Florida, and his dad is a wrestler, Terry Landell. And I wrote, deadbeat dad and neglectful husband who only makes a pittance. Terry hitting all the highlights of being a wrestler dad in the 70s.
Oh, no.
That's basically the tragedy. Is he idolizes his dad, but his dad's never home because he's wrestling. But at the same time, he doesn't make any money because he doesn't stand up for himself when they're like, you're gonna take the loss, Terry. Yeah. He's like, okay. And it basically like dissolves his marriage at the same time, and he like leaves and he never talks to Rory again, we can assume.
Although there's this motif where Rory throughout a lot of the series is wearing a t-shirt under his like kind of jacket. That's Rory's number one fan. And we kind of see that began with he's at the end of issue 2, we get like one more flashback, and he's buying a comic book or he's buying a magazine, wrestling magazine, and we see his dad on it, and his dad's wearing the Rory's number one fan shirt. So we see that like there is like a little bit of like fatherly there was sort of this fatherly connection that he hasn't quite let go of, because you think like the Rory's number one fan thing is an ego thing, but then no, that was like a thing his dad wore for him
Yeah,
while
yeah.
cutting promos, and he can't let go of it.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about this in issue 5, but like
Mhm.
his dad being a wrestler and leaving him left a lot on his psyche. It
Yeah.
had a huge effect on him. I wrote for about him buying the magazine. Why buy porno mags when you can buy Pro Wrestling Illustrated?
Yeah, yeah, no, seriously. They like the guy, for some reason, the guy at the like store that
He's trying
Rory's
to
buying the
convince him to
magazine
buy
from.
porno mags.
Yeah.
He's like, don't worry, kid. I won't look I'll look the other way. I
Yeah, I
won't
don't know
card you. And
what's
he's like,
going
no,
on
I
with
want the
him.
wrestling magazine.
I don't know what's going on with him. Um, but yeah, we get we get kind of our first indication that like this is really kind of gonna focus on this character as he learns to grow out of that kind of emotional stunting experience as a kid. And that was the first time I was like, oh, this is kind of gonna go into a legit story. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I also
And then
want
I
to
get
take
then
this
really
time
the
to
only
talk to for a moment about at the end of each issue there are like these little extra like pages that are kind of these in-universe written promos of some kind or other. So like at the
mhm.
end of issue 2 we get one advertising Rory and Mini
Yeah,
Macho's
the
match
show and
from the previous
mhm.
issue. Um and then another one from the, like, British kayfabe commissioner being, like, a total snob. Um,
No, he like reveals his evil heel intentions that like he doesn't like Rory, and so his evil plan was to like covertly hypnotize him
yeah.
to thinking that he's the galactic champion, and
Yeah,
then
the
all
way they
paying
kind of,
off.
like in their own kayfabe, the way they, like, retcon the fact that Rory left, is utterly hysterical.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny. Um, Yeah, and then the end of the first issue we didn't mention, but they have like an interview with the bear with Kodiak Jack's manager
Yeah.
slash handler, I guess, because he's a bear,
Nah.
and he like
Yeah.
talks about how like everybody in the AWF better watch out because I'm gonna manage the first bear to become world champion.
It's so fucking funny. Um,
And then the only
so
other thing in issue 2 is that we get the scene with Don being with his wife
his wife,
in bed, and they watch the Good Morning America show where Manifest Destiny like clocks the one of the hosts in the head with a chair,
yeah,
and
um
Don realizes he's got to leave, he's got to go find Rory.
Yeah. And he like leaves his wife behind again. Should have been a much bigger red flag. Like she's like, "Let me come with you." He's like, "No, honey, this is man's work."
Yes, he
And
said this is man business, and I wrote this is man's work.
yeah. Oh
Like from
no,
Rudolph. I was like,
I am a man. Oh
but
god.
yeah, then Mini Macho hitches a ride along the way, and they're kind of there the rest of the
Which
book to kind of help
which
him out.
best plot beat of this entire thing, because Mini Macho's great and I love him.
Yep.
Um
So issue 3, the first note that I wrote, because it opens with Dick Drayson in his office, and he
yes.
gets a meeting with the aliens. The aliens track him down, and they're coming to, and they want their match with Roy Landell, and Dick Drayson offers him a seat, and this is what the note that I wrote is the quote from Manifest Destiny: "Your earthling chairs are not fit to carry the galactic
Yes.
champion, Dick
Yes.
Grayson."
I know he refers to everybody like by full name, which is also hysterical. Like it feels very like alien warlordy, but at the same time, like wrestling aficionado who knows like all of the like names of all the like main players and like is referring to them by full name because that's like the proper dignified way to do it.
Yeah,
It's so
uh,
funny.
yeah, and then I wrote Dick Drayson like a true carny trying to make a buck off the fate of the Earth,
Yeah, which
because
he does.
yeah, they set it up as the fate of the planet live on pay-per-view December 31st.
Yeah, and he manages a 70-30, 70 on the part of the aliens split with home video
Yeah,
rights
but he
and
gets all the home
merchandising,
video rights
and
and merchandising and
yeah,
license. He gets all this ancillary. He gets all the
as he's
ancillary
getting
shit that
choked
gets the
out,
real
by the way,
money.
as he's getting choked out, by the way, he's asking merchandising, fast food promotion, theme park licensing.
And the alien's like, whatever, man, just give him the match.
Yeah, they're like, we don't care.
I
Just,
wrote that
yeah.
we just want to fight Rory Landell. Yeah. And then we cut back to Rory. And he's like chained up because they're talking about what to do. But this is the first hint of how this pays off later of the aliens who kidnapped him at the bar talking about whether to bring him to Manifest Destiny or bring him to you know who. Mm-hmm. But they got him chained up, and then suddenly Mini Macho arrives to save him. To fight the aliens, and he like beats their asses.
Oh my god, he's like 3-on-1, and he goes so hard. And again, Mini Macho's my favorite. It felt very like the way he moves, the way he was drawn to move feels very Rey Mysterio, which is awesome. He's doing these like high flying maneuvers.
He does like the cool move of like swinging around the light pole.
Yep. And he's like doing flips and bouncing off people. And of course ends with like a big dramatic flare with like his arms up in victorious pose.
Mm-hmm. And while that's happening, Dawn secretly unties Rory and they make a break for it.
Yeah, they make a hasty retreat.
And then from there,
we get my favorite scene. Conference. We get my favorite scene of this entire series.
I'll let you do more of the explanation of what happened, but I would like to read my note to start off.
Yes.
The UN conference devolving into chaos because they're all a bunch of marks.
Yeah. because so we go to the UN and we have like it starts off with this TV announcer who's
I called him Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, he's basically Walter Cronkite. And he's like the fate of the world is at stake, so the UN is meeting to decide the best course of action. And like the UN leaders get up and just immediately start standing for like their country's home wrestlers. And it turns out everyone in the UN's like a gigantic fucking wrestling fan.
Yeah, first of all, they decide to forego any other way to deal with this.
Yeah.
Like no reason to bring in any actual military or anything. Clearly, they've come to wrestle. We got to do this in the ring.
Like if the bar fight scene in episode 2 or in issue 2 was when I first got the feeling of like, oh man, we're like in for a penny, in for a pound on treating wrestling as if it was like all legit actually, even though kayfabe was admitted to. This was, oh, we're in for a penny, in for a pound, on the entire world is super fucking invested in wrestling to the point of like getting viciously angry if they're like if their faves are getting disrespected, to the point where the UN is having heated discourse.
This feels like in Yu-Gi-Oh when they end up doing plots that are like the fate of the planet, and they still decide that the best course of action is through card games.
Fucking card games.
Is through a children's card game. But yeah, so and I wrote, this is a big wrestling reference joke because I wrote all these down for this.
Yeah.
Is you first have the delegate from Iran #1, America Pooey. That's important because he suggests that they bring out Ivan Kalashnikov and Iron Hussein, which are very blatantly Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
and the Russian delegation is like, yes, I agree.
Yeah, they're getting up, and then the Canadian delegation gets up and promotes basically the Quebecers.
The Gaspard Dubois and Pierre Renault, which I wrote 3 ones. I wrote the Can-Am connection in that they're called the French-Canadian connection, and then I was like the Fabulous Rougeaus / the Quebecers.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the American delegation pops up and is like, we got to bring the American Gigolos into it. And I wrote, their name reminds me of the American Males, but they could be any pretty boy tag team. They don't really look like any of them.
Yeah. One of them has kind of like Shawn Michaels, Triple H kind of look to him, but like the other one, I don't know.
No, and it dissolves into this nonsense, so like wrestling fight between the delegations. Like
the delegation starts like beating each other up. Like even the head of the UN, like
he takes his hammer.
Yeah, but then he leaves and takes his fucking like gavel and like leaps off the podium and is like is dive bombing into the crowd of people fighting below him. And then the best part of this is like we cut back to the Walter Cronkite type staring directly to the camera and going, "We're all screwed." And that is my favorite bit, I think, in this entire series. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah.
It was such a good gag.
Yeah, then it cuts back to them to Rory and Don driving to presumably the Sportatorium. They
Yep.
don't make that super clear at that point, but I can assume so because Don knows what's up.
Yep.
And then I wrote nice Y2K reference to remind me what year this story takes place in. And then I
Yeah.
wrote the quote where they're talking about where he's like asking, why do we not just fly? Why are we driving? And Don goes, ever heard of a little something called Y2K?
I'm not gonna lie, it took me a second.
And then
Because I
Rory's
thought it was
immediately
saying, like, YZK, and I was like, "What the hell is YZK?" And then I kinda, like, went back and I was like, "Oh, it's 99. Oh,
yeah,
never
and then
mind."
immediately Rory goes, "It's December 27th."
Yeah.
And then they give Mini Macho. I wouldn't expect this. They give Mini Macho the flashback backstory to like
Yeah.
tell you all about what his origins are.
And it's, basically like I was a small kid and I kept getting beat up on in my village back in the home country, and I had a wrestler that I looked up to and an aunt who took good care of me, but my aunt died, and I promised that one day I would fight in the world's biggest wrestling ring so she could watch from heaven. And it's
Oh yeah,
very
that was so
cute.
sweet because it's like nah, like his not his. I appreciate that his aunt is like a nun,
Yeah.
but she still supports him 100%. And the wrestler that he cheered for is El Santissimo, which
Mhm.
is clearly El Santo, with
Yep.
also a dash of Fry Tormenta. I don't know, that name probably isn't familiar to you, but that's the
Mm-mm.
inspiration for Nacho Libre.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so like as like and but like the he like he's clearly like blatantly Catholic and he's all about fighting for the Lord and fighting the
Uh-huh.
devices of evil. I'm like, oh, this is reminding me of Fry Tormenta
Yeah.
because Fry Tormenta was a real life priest who was a wrestler in Mexico. And yeah, but that was just a really sweet little moment getting his backstory.
The story. Mini Macho is again my favorite, and again, it's a really tropey backstory, but that doesn't make it feel trite because it's drawn
Mm-hmm.
really well. And at this point, you've kind of come to have an affinity for this character. He's proved himself as like a good fighter, and he kind of proves himself a handy little sidekick. So,
Yeah, and
uh,
they and
like
he yeah, and he basically goes is he's joining along here because he feels like this is destiny.
yes,
This is what this is what he was meant to do, which includes this fantastic quote: "When God put you, referring to Rory, in
mm.
my life for a 6-month program, it was enough for me to question even his judgment."
Yep, I noticed that. Um, And then we have a great kind of sequence where simultaneously, um, Dresden gets ambushed by a group of alien defectors, I guess, who are going against the great plan of Manifest Destiny. While at the same time, um, Rory and Co.'s car suddenly gets ambushed and thrown over a cliff.
Yeah, and they getting thrown over the cliff is like the cliffhanger ish of issue
Uh,
3. But then, but yeah, a large part of the end of issue 3 is dominated by this conversation between Drazen, and I called him the coup group, but the defectors works as well, led by Adrian Polaris, who's like, we want to take over. We want one of our people to become the galactic champion
yeah.
because that apparently gives you some sort of authority, of intergalactic authority.
Yeah. Uh, it so this is where like we get like we start to get the really convoluted because like we have this like secret subplot where not only is Dresden in the pocket of the aliens on a whole, he's now also even more specifically in the pocket of like aliens who are working against the goals of the main aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of like again no surprise that the scummy boss is just going for like whatever gets him, whatever offer is thrown his way that's tempting, because they're like, hey, if you do this for us, you get to become leader of Earth when we make it a wrestling like colony planet.
And he's like, all right, I'm in.
He's like, cool. And then the best part about this, so amongst this crew, so we have Adrian, our David Bowie looking motherfucker.
We have Sonny Jim Cooley, the Peach Blossom Playboy, who is basically he is their like puppet. He's the one that they want to beat Manifest Destiny to win the title.
And he's just kind of like an arrogant ass. And then we have like and then we have the dominatrix wrestler and like her chained up like sub pet, which once again, wrestling very kinky.
Dominatrix.
Dominatrix. It's
like and her pet is Harem Scarum, I think.
Yeah, which called. Like I just appreciate so hard that even this comic is leaning into like, yeah, wrestling gets like weirdly sexual at times.
No, okay. I wrote Dominatrix having the most memorable intro in the series by bringing her slave and lifting Dick Grayson by the balls.
By the balls. It was like, it reminded me of that scene in Always Sunny in one of the more recent seasons where they're at like sexual misconduct sensitivity training, and Mac like grabs Dee by the crotch and lifts her up as part of a demonstration. It's such a great moment, and she is a hilarious character. And
I wrote her quote that I sent to David while I was reading it. We wish to spend no more time on this planet of subs.
I know.
It takes for Cooley to win the title.
I did a double take reading that line. Austin had sent it to me, but like even when I got to it in the comic, I did a double take because I'm like, no way, they're being like, they're just going straight up with this. But no, they did, and I kind of have to applaud their balls for just going for it.
Yeah. So now there's three parties. And there's three parties in this little wildness. And I wrote this long little paragraph of my feelings about this. Is that looking back, it's interesting how this is a quasi face turn for someone named Manifest Destiny. Yeah. Still thinking about it, we've never seen him do anything that's really heelish, at least in comparison to the Defectors. Manifest Destiny has just been framed as a villain. The Defectors are the ones trying to team up with a Vince McMahon pastiche, just steal someone's spotlight. They're definitely the bigger dicks here.
Yeah, I noticed that too. What's interesting about Manifest Destiny is like, yeah, he's a colonizer and fuck that. But they kind of give him this almost like naivete in a way. Like he's just so like I keep alluding to, he's so sincere in what he's doing. Like he doesn't realize that what Rory was doing all those years ago was a bit. Like he knows that like within his society, wrestling is valued as like XYZ, and some imposter claiming to be the true like galactic champion is just a stain on his honor and stain on his empire, and he needs to challenge that. And then it's the defectors that are really turning it into like an awful plot.
Yeah, it's this obviously nonsense, like might makes right kind of thing. But here's the thing. In real life, that's complete shit. In the wrestling world, though, that kind of just makes you a good guy.
Yes.
He fights that's very relevant to issue 6, is that like he doesn't really do his whole thing is clearly a bad thing outside of the wrestling bubble and wrestling logic. But in wrestling logic, he doesn't really do anything bad. He doesn't really do anything that would be considered bad.
Yeah. It's just
I think that's kind of interesting to bring up in a wrestling comic.
Yeah. They never like really textually go into it, but it's still really interesting to look at and kind of realize like, there's a little more like I appreciate that there's like subtext going on here, right? Of they're not holding your hand throughout this entire plot and telling you like this is, how you should feel about each thing. They just kind of throw together all this stuff like wrestling is kind of want to do. There are moving parts that you just, if you want to get something like really enriching out of it, you kind of have to like read between the lines. And even if it's not like textually explicitly there are things you can kind of assume to be the intent of the writers, just kind of based on the setup. And again, really interesting way to just emulate the way in which wrestling is written uh,
Mhm.
on a broad level. It's super cool that that they even have that kind of similar subtext angle going on.
Yeah. And then the end of the third issue is the extra bit is like a character bio on a lot of like the main characters from the 80s. That was kind of cute.
Yep,
And then obviously you get the ad for Rory Landell's LP. I don't remember what it was called exactly, but the joke
below the
was like
belt.
not below the belt, and they framed the shot where he like is naked except for maybe something over his junk, and then he puts the LP over his junk as if that's the only thing covering it. I
Yeah,
was like, oh yeah, give me some of
which
that sexy Rory Landell action.
which between Val Venus and Hulk Rules, I just felt traumatized looking at that fake ad. I was like, I just got flashbacks, and I'm like, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah, so Alien issue 4 is it starts with the car crash. They're all okay. I laughed that Don called the car crash a bump.
Yeah, I know. Nice bit of
But
terminology
then
there.
yeah, and then they go to this like amusement park in the middle of nowhere. And then suddenly the alien wrestlers pop out of these sharks in a sharks, these like sharks with water coming out.
Yeah, like
And they
water
get in the
slide.
fight in the water slide. And they get in the amusement park. I think my favorite line is that one point Rory gets dunked under and he almost gets drowned and he comes back up and he's like, "Oh, that tastes
Tastes
like
like
piss."
piss.
And then Imacho's like, "You know this how?"
Yeah.
And then they pay that off later.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Planning and like again, the writing in this thing rules. But so they do this great sequence where they get ambushed by all these crazy wrestlers, including what's probably a Doink the Clown send up.
Mhm.
Um, which I got a kick out of. And it kind of comes to them at the top of a water slide, and they have like this epic you know slide down fight where like the humans are trying to use the aliens as like surfboards in the water, and
Okay, you wouldn't know this, and I didn't even catch it the first time. One of the first move that Mini Macho does on the alien, where he like has his arms pulled up
yeah.
behind him, that is literally a wrestling move called a surfboard.
Oh my god.
I
No
was like,
way.
oh my god, he's doing a surfboard on the water slide.
Yup.
I wrote in this is that they were chasing after Dawn. I wrote, I love that Dawn does the heroic sacrifice, go on without me thing for Rory and Macho for
And
them
then
to
they come to the
immediately chase
bottom of the
after
slide,
him and
he's
catch up
fine.
to him at the end of the slide.
Yeah, he's fine.
No, yeah, he does because they're trying to find. Basically, Dawn is like, we got to find my old tag partner Jay Warcloud because like, dude, you got your ass kicked by the scrubs. Manifest Destiny's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
You need to get trained up. And like as he's going down the slide, he goes, "Find Jay Warcloud."
Yeah. Um and then they keep getting ambushed, but then they get help. Four more wrestlers show up from basically what I'm assuming is like WCW
Kind of,
sort of
it's kind of like
promotion.
another rival group. I wrote down their names. You got Fatback Billy Mangrum,
Well, see,
who I wrote.
yeah.
Go on.
No, I saw Billy Mangrum, and immediately I'm like, okay, so he's oh god, Ted
Tennessee
Turner.
Lee because
Oh,
what I wrote is bit of everything from territory promoters. He's got that Bill Watts hat, the body of a Dusty Rhodes, has a real Texan energy like a Von Erich, and dresses like Tennessee Lee / Colonel Robert Parker.
yeah.
So he felt like a pastiche of a little bit of everything there. But then you get him, you get Daryl and Derek of 3D. They explain that one in a minute.
Yeah.
And then you get the return of Linda.
Linda.
I forget. I don't know if we get her real name. I know that her wrestling name was the Spanish Rose.
Yeah, I don't know if we get her real name in episode
This,
1.
yeah, so it's so Linda is returned now looking Black Canary as fuck.
Oh, I know.
Like same outfit.
No, we do get her real name in the first issue.
Besides her first name?
Yeah, no, well, I don't know if they reference her as Spanish Rose in this one. but
I
like
know,
we get
I
that
know, I
later.
know she's Spanish Rose in the part where they do the '80s wrestlers, but I don't remember if they give her real name.
In I'm looking at issue 1.
Mhm.
Rory refers to her as Linda.
Okay,
Um,
so it's they just give her first name.
yeah.
But yeah, Linda returning after 15. This is their first time. This is Linda and Rory's first time meeting.
Mhm.
Oof. But
Uh,
anyway, um, yeah, so they save him and that's good because they also need a car. So they hop into their like minivan, their like minivan,
mhm.
and
Uh,
we kind of get a come down of the action where they're playing this like NES looking video game,
yeah, I know.
AWF 99 upside your head. I made a joke that rock hard Ricky Landry is like a combination of like Stone Cold Steve Austin and Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, not even wrong. Chug nuts Drazen.
Yeah, I thought that was a joke on Jeff Jarrett's later catchphrase of slap nuts. I was like, it's the same.
Oh,
That's what
shit.
we've never seen that Jarrett on this show. But I
We
was
have
like,
not seen that Jared on the show.
that's slap nuts, isn't it? That's the joke there. It's
Huh.
chug nuts.
Oh my god.
But anyway, yeah, they're like Rory's having the worst time of his life, getting stuck watching these idiots play video games. And we get the
Mini Macho's
backstory.
loving it, by the way.
Yeah, Mini Match is having a great time.
Yeah.
We get the backstory for Daryl and Derek.
Yeah, I
And
know. Everybody gets a backstory. It's awesome.
we get like that's the backstory for 3D. And basically they used to have a tag team partner called Dennis.
Yeah.
But it's funny, and I'll admit that let's do some real world stuff here as I'm an accountant as
Yeah.
like my real job.
Uh,
Dennis is also an accountant, and the reason they split is because that like Dennis was trying to focus on his like real studies and crap, and while there were like party animals, and he could not deal with that anymore.
it's so funny. Like we track him through him like studying beginning accounting, intermediate accounting, and then taking the CPA exam.
And every time they're still doing keg, doing like
Yeah.
keg, they're doing keg or like
They're doing keg stands
the whole
They're
time.
doing keg stands, including in the same room as the CPA exam, and we just see Derek about to snap. It's so funny.
Now it's very funny. I admit knowing their backstory and how they treat Dennis made it a little harder for me to really get invested in Daryl and Derek. I was like, you guys are kind of being a little dicks here, especially because they framed the story as if like they left Dennis.
Yeah,
as opposed
and we
Dennis
see them
being
like begging for him to like stay with them.
Yeah, and he's like, you know what, fuck this. I'm just gonna stay being an accountant.
Yep, I have a full-time job as an accountant. Do. TikTok, anyone? Okay, yeah.
No.
Uh, so we cut back to the van, and Rory and Linda have a heart to heart.
Yeah.
One of kind of like 3, and over the course of this series, we kind of get to track the progression of their relationship with kind of these conversations they have.
Mhm.
This first one being they're just kind of like catching up with each other, and things are kind of awkward and
he learns that that what he did also tanked her career
yeah.
because they knew he was involved with her, so they blackballed her too.
Yep. So we just kind of
And
get to see like the intensity here, or
yeah,
the tension between the two, as they kind of catch up and realize like, damn, what they left each other to be,
mhm.
in a way.
Yeah, I wrote that Rory hints at his own insecurities and self-loathing that he clearly hides behind his attitude and drinking.
Yep.
Then we get an in-universe commercial for the pay-per-view. I wrote like a few notes on it. I wrote Santa Claus and a figure 4 because
Also,
I'm
looking at the sequence right now. In the background of the Santa Claus scene, an alien fighting like a mall Santa is Derek with his like kids. We see like a bald bearded black dude with yellow glasses, which is exactly how Derek's drawn like for the entirety of his flashback. And I'm like, I just realized that. Oh my god, that's so funny.
We lost internet connection. You got to repeat that.
For your yeah. In the background of the Santa Claus bit of the commercial, because we see Derek. It's Derek in the background with his kids. I just noticed that. I have the panel pulled
Oh,
up.
I didn't notice that. That's pretty great.
I'm just going back through it now, and I'm just looking, and I'm like, oh my god, that's Derek.
Yeah, they add in a few. They talk about other stuff on the card besides the main event. I wrote a squash challenge. Clever joke.
What's the challenge there?
Because
Oh,
like
Jobber Squash.
yeah, like because like it was literal. Like the commercial talks about it as if it's like a literal like compare your squashes.
Yeah.
You see at a county fair, like, I get it because it's like a squash, like squash matches. Like, funny. And then got to throw in that card subject to change bit when you intend to bait and switch the entire main event. and then I wrote 1995 for a pay per view. What is this B-level pay per view shit? It's the fate of the world.
Yeah.
Because that's like the pricing model that WWE would do in the 90s for their like B shows is like they sold them cheaper. And I was like, what the crap is this? This is a $50 show. This is the fate of the planet.
Oh my god. I mean they want everybody to tune in, right? If it's more accessible, more people watch.
I guess.
And also the celebrity timer and guest ref.
Referee. Yep. Like all delightfully cheesy wrestling.
All the tropes.
And apparently in the background they have a conversation because they're talking about how like Rory's escaped their grasp again, and Dick Grayson's like, "Don't worry, I got it." They send Dominatrix to make sure that it's taken care of. Mm-hmm. And then we also get a thing in the background talking about how Kodiak Jack has escaped from captivity.
Yeah, and Dominatrix's sub is watching.
Yeah, Harem Scarum seems really into this.
Yeah, story. Which again is they have so many like clever little things in this. It's something that it's a little symbolic thing that pays off later. Kodiak Jack being used as a symbol not once but twice in this damn story.
Yep, you'll love to see it. And then, but we cut back to what they're doing, and the guys go to. I wrote this down because I needed to make sure we talked about this. Is the references in the restaurants they at where they basically have to stop because the van's getting overheated, so they got to stop for a second, and you get two shots of local businesses, and both of them are wrestling jokes.
Of course, they are.
You get Big Papa's Pump.
Mm-hmm.
On their way in front of the strip club they're about to go to. I was like, "Hey, Scott Steiner reference, bro." And then the strip club is called the Smoking
Guns. Yeah. I
was like, "Ah."
Mm-hmm.
But then they go to the strip club, and I made a few notes about this. The first note I wrote is 90% of the people at the strip club being women should have been a tip.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and skip to the gag where they basically decide to stick around for a while because it's a strip club. What do you know? And it's a gay strip club. Yep. All the strippers are men.
Yep.
And I assumed that the irony of professional wrestlers being grossed out by beefy dudes in skimpy clothing was entirely on purpose.
Yeah.
Because then they're all grossed out by it, but they stay because while they're waiting for the strippers to come out, Don gets ordered a ginger ale, and Don's like, "Well, I paid for this ginger ale, I'm gonna finish it."
Yeah, Don's just kind of into it. But while that's kind of happening, Rory and Linda have heart-to-heart number 2, where they just kind of see like the ways in which they resent each other. Linda's sniping at Rory, and Rory decides, fuck this, I'm gonna leave. I don't want to deal with this shit.
It leaves on her saying, "Go on, leave. It's what you're good at."
Yeah.
I was like, but also, this is the part I was going to bring up from the first time. I mentioned this in the issue 1 too, but I want to tie back into it. Is that I noted on my second read through, every time Rory gets close to actually feeling something about the consequences of his own actions, he shifts into obnoxious arrogance.
Yeah.
Like both this conversation and his conversation with Dawn, where he ends up jumping out of the car. It's the same setup both times where they are straight up with him about how much of a shitbag you are and how much you hurt me. And and you get this sense that he does feel this. Like he does feel guilt about it, but then he quickly shuts that down and goes and just leans harder into being like the arrogant rock star.
Yeah, exactly. Which and every time it gets more and more aggressive, and it ends up with him getting into more and more shit. Because because at first it's just he loses his career, and then
Mhm.
it's he he loses his career again by dropping Don, and then gets like ambushed in a bar, and now uh it turns out that this whole setup is a trap, ostensibly the one that Drazen was talking about.
Yeah,
Having
Dick
set.
Grayson playing 7D chess by managing to pay off the strippers and the truck driver. Because basically, what
Yeah.
happens is when Rory leaves, he tries to
Well,
hitchhike
they weren't
with a
even paid
truck
off. They were
driver.
just alien plants, apparently. They all
I didn't
some of
think
them were designed to be the
I think the
aliens.
strippers were. I didn't think the truck driver
The
was.
truck driver you can see has the same tattoo as the alien defectors
Oh, I
at one
didn't catch
point.
that. That's a
Yep.
good catch. I wrote when the truck driver's about to lock him in the truck, he goes, "Be right back." Then, brother,
Brother.
and it's like ominous.
Ominous.
But yeah,
Ominous brother.
I also joked that Dick Drazen's undercover crew was called Naked Ambition. It's like
Uh
that's cute.
yeah.
And then yeah, that's kind of how issue 4 ends. It's because he's got the radio hooked in to talk to, and Drayson wants a one-on-one with Rory while the rest of the people are getting choked out in the strip club.
Yes. So then we get to issue 5
Well, I guess
with
I think we should talk about the end of
oh.
the end of issue 4 a bit.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Is you get the wrestling themed prepper gear for the first part. It's
Oh,
like
which is like
real
ungodly expensive.
real carny shit. And then we get a obituary for Boris Yeltsin. So I guess this is as good a time as any to bring this up. Is that like in this comic book, they use real world political figures from '99,
Yeah.
and Boris Yeltsin, the actual president, was that the right?
Yeah, President Yeltsin of Russia.
Of Russia, he dies in a literal death match with the WrestleTopians.
Yep.
I was
And
like, holy shit, what?
and they're like and the Russian papers like long live our heroic Russian people, long live Russia, all hail deceased fearless leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Issue 5, Show Me State of Mind works on so many levels as a title. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Because they're in Iowa, plus the stuff that we'll get to in a second.
Yeah. And this issue is definitely the Rory character development TM episode.
Mm-hmm.
Which we get in two kind of well, I guess three-ish kind of distinct ways. Because it starts off with he's locked in the truck, and he gets an intercom call from Drazen, who's like, "Hey, come, be my man. Throw this match for me, like
He
the defectors
offers him
want."
the AWF title.
Yep, the world title to hold on to for life. And it's like
And
fucking ruby encrusted,
yeah.
and
And I wrote the line down because I thought it was a good one. Is he ends it is Drazen is that Rory ends this with like just one question. If you're so busy being in charge of Earth, who will I see about blowing my crank? So yeah, he turns it down, and I wrote it's cliche, but it's important for Rory's character arc. When presented with an opportunity to have the one thing he's always wanted, he rejects it because some things are more important, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like like at the beginning of the story, he wanted nothing more than to be the AWF champion to the point of quitting and tagging his own
Yep.
career over it. And
His
now
and Linda's, yeah.
yeah. And he's presented with an opportunity to win it, to have it forever, and he says no because he knows that's not the right thing.
Exactly. And the truck just starts accelerating toward like something that's gonna make it explode.
Someone's
like
gonna blow it up.
or
That's the
something.
point, is that he's gonna die.
Yeah. And then we keep cutting back to the thing, and we cut back to the brawl in the bar, and eventually our heroes get the upper hand with the help of Linda and 3D and all of them. And they get out and they hit the road, and Rory in the meantime is trying to get out of the truck and can't for the life of him, and he ends up smashing the belt, taking one of the rubies, and etching like a little bit of an escape circle into the window that he can kind of kick out from.
The symbolism, David.
Yep, destroying the belt.
Destroy the belt
to save his life. Yep.
I note that he does clutch his knee on the grab when he jumps out.
Yep.
And then I also noted that they have the shot where the picture of him and Linda from '84 is burning in the fire.
Yep. Which is just like
Yeah, I mistimed the thing about Kodiak Jack. Apparently,
Yeah,
this is the one where that happened. But anyway,
either way,
Rory luckily is able to find Jay
survive.
Warcloud anyway,
Yep, wanders off.
and
Follows some turkeys, by the way, to War Cloud's
oh, that's appropriate.
War Cloud's um camp out, I guess.
Yeah, and here might be one of this could be one of the better sequences in this whole thing.
I would agree with that.
I wrote, "Hope you packed your bags, Rory, because you're going on a trip." Where he eats some drugged egg salad, and he fights. He literally fights his own inner demons in a wrestling match.
Yeah, which I have to say, it kind of cracked me up because this is not the first time in wrestling media I've seen something like this. Because No Rolls Barred, which is like a wrestling RPG show, did the exact same sort of setup. Well, it manifested differently, but like a very similar setup where like people where somebody took like Native American drugs and went on a drug trip where they had to like wrestle with their own psyche.
Yes, that was pretty sick. I wrote down all of their names. First, he has to fight the Glory Hound. It was him in his athletic prime.
Yep.
Testosterone poisoning, and he looks like a cartoonish masculine caricature.
Yep.
Also, the testosterone poisoning gets a really interesting little bit of like intrigue into the way he thinks, because it's during this part of the match that like there's a dream version of Linda flirting with a naked man with the title belt for a head, and he's like, "What, you're flirting with, like, you're sleeping with him?" And it all leads into this, like, his idea of like he was afraid that Linda wouldn't want him anymore if he failed to win the title.
Yep, because that's what he saw. Because that's what he saw happen with his dad.
Yeah, it is literally it. Now that I think about it, I didn't even make that immediate connection, because literally their last conversation is he comes home and the wife is like, "You forget something?" And he's like, "Nope." And he's like, and she's like, "I thought you were going to win the belt." And he's like, "Well, plans change." And she gets mad at him about that as part of the larger thing of like letting them run, not treating him the way he deserves to be treated for all he does for them. And that along with the low payout is what leads to him leaving. So literally, this happened with his dad, and he's repeating it again. He repeated it again in believing that his significant other would not love him anymore if he didn't have the belt.
Oof, tough shit.
And this happened with testosterone poisoning.
Yep. And in the background, I just want to like talk for a second about like this whole sequence is gorgeous. Like they do a great job with like kind of this psychedelic imagery, all these things in the background. When it's like him in the physical prime, we have like shattering mirrors and like the countdown, the timer saying like spelling out sexy, stuff like that. And then we get to testosterone poisoning, and we see like drugs and presumably steroids. But then we see like when he's mad at Linda, we see like all these explosives in the background, and gigantic explosion when he asks her, "You're sleeping with him?" Like, just all of the little like visual details in this make this such a gorgeous like sequence. Like, it's trippy as hell, but it works. So it doesn't feel contrived. It works really well.
And then you get Liquid Courage, which is obviously him being like a drunk.
The drunk off his ass sort of character.
Representative of what he has become because of the first two things. And then the last one, the Masked Menace, who he unmasks him, and it is revealed that it was his father.
Yep.
And it ends on the line, "He's a good kid. He's just got to learn to get out of his own way."
Yep.
And I was like, "Aww."
Yep. Like the ultimate the reconciliation with that ultimate internal demon, his dad in the back of his mind, who left and he never got closure with, and finally here's what it is.
Yeah.
He got to take out his frustrations, and his dad's like, "You're okay, kid."
Yeah. And then I wrote, I wonder what was going on in the real world while Rory was doing all that.
Yeah, well, whatever happened, he's managed to stumble his way onto the freeway right in front of the van.
Yeah, so they all get back together, and they're like, "Well, how are we going to get to the show now?" And they're like, "We're going to hitchhike a train."
We're gonna hit and the other really important visual thing going on here is Rory's shirt at this point is just utterly busted up. The Rory's number one fan shirt is all busted up, and one of the 3Ds um hands him a new shirt uh to be like, your old one's
And it
busted,
says
put it on instead.
"Stronger
And it
Together."
says stronger together. And Rory makes a comment about little big. And the whichever D it is says, "Nah, that's the style." Which I kind of interpret as one of two ways. It's either like Rory something Rory has to grow into,
Mhm.
or the bigness of it, and that's the style being like, you can't do this sort of crap solo anymore. You have to have
Yeah.
you have to be able to like trust people and rely on people. Have
Yeah.
a bigger kind of like circle in your
There's
life.
so much good symbolism in this issue.
I know, it's so awesome. Um,
And but they're gonna hitchhike off the train cars, and then I do the obligatory moment where the X's get close, but they reject the moment because
yep,
they do the thing where they both try to dive into the car and they land on top of each other, and Rory is like almost, and Rory kind of like cracks a joke at it, and she's like, "No, we shouldn't live in our past." And then Rory finally gets really true about it because he apologizes to Linda in their other two conversations, or he apologizes the first time in the van, and then in the second time at the bar, he's like, "I said I'm sorry. What more do you want from me?"
hmm
But this time he apologizes again and is painfully honest about what his problem was, is that he was a coward and he was afraid of how she would look at him if he didn't win that title that night.
yeah, and um,
I wrote, "God damn it, Rory takes on a whole new meaning knowing what Linda is planning to do."
yeah,
Which is an issue 6 thing, but yeah, the first time through, it just kind of reads like an emotional
yeah, and she's kind of like
utterance.
rejecting it, and
Yeah,
not now. Um,
but I do think it takes on a double meaning when you consider where it goes
yeah,
and what
exactly.
was supposed to happen.
Yep,
And then the aliens catch up to them on the train. They fight atop the train, which is not good. Don't fight on top of moving trains, kids.
yep.
That's bad.
Um,
And Don gets one last save. He saves his life Rory's life one more time, and
as
Rory's like,
Dominatrix dies for
you're getting,"
Rory.
and they fall off the train,
Yeah,
and that
Don
is how
pushes Rory
issue
out of the
5.
way, and
Mhm.
Dominatrix gets him instead. And then our
And
little
that's
extras are both Don related actually, which again, you just know the writing on the wall at this point. The first one is like Don Fong Wong's
Devious
Devious
Fighting
Fighting
Techniques
Techniques VHS.
VHS. And I wrote the names of all they basically like give like real wrestling names to all of the cheating tactics. So you have the standing Singapore deathlock, choking someone out with a Singapore cane, the double knuckle groin grab, the foot on head neck twist, and the reverse Fing Cheng face bite.
Yeah.
And I love the last line of this thing that says, "This tape is considered so dangerous, it's already been banned in 36 countries. Buy it now before the authorities make it
Make it
illegal."
illegal. Um, and then we get Don from his days when he was playing a Native American character, opposite Jay Warcloud. So there's Jay Warcloud and there's Chief Don Thundersnake.
Yeah,
Um,
I laugh at the poster said karate allowed.
I know, I know what the hell. It's like advertising like back in probably like the 60s or
It
something,
would have been the 70s, probably the 70s. It
70s.
was probably a good. That's
Yeah.
my guess. Is roughly the 70s.
Either way, um, uh, it's like the Great Plains Tag Team Champions versus like Bodyguard number 2 and Dragon Owasso. So like, just
Mhm.
random like
Yeah,
they both look they're both like, Chinese, they're Asian inspired characters prefiguring what Don would then have to play later on.
yeah,
It's just all this cute little stuff. Just all the little touches. Again, I
yeah.
love it.
Issue 6. It
The
before we get
big
to
final
the
hoobah.
yeah yeah it is 50 pages long, and
Yep.
I'll tell you why it's a double issue is because the final fight between Rory and Manifest Destiny is the length of a comic book,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate it for that because I think it allowed it to feel like epic,
Oh,
like
I
giving it
agree
that
I
much
agree with
time.
that. We get the final fight, And like all the fight sequences in this book are like fun, but they're all like relatively short. They're over in like a couple pages.
Mhm.
This was from the time like kind of Rory enters the arena all the way to the final moment that the fight outcome is declared is like Jesus, like over what is it, like
It's
30
like 20.
pages?
I think it's
Like
22. I
20.
think I counted like 22 pages or something
Yeah,
like that.
something in there. It's like over 20 pages. It's wild.
Yeah.
Um,
But before we get to all that, we got to get to they start the pay-per-view and they cut to like the real world political figures. And like that is
that's
where I
where it
want to
gets
bring this out.
wild.
Is like you get they have like Bill and Hillary Clinton. They have I forget who the president of China, but it is who it is.
Jiang Zemin,
Yes.
uh,
And his wife, and then fucking Pope John
Pope
Paul II.
JP2 holding a sign that says "Manifest Destiny sucks ass."
I wrote in my notes, you expect me to believe that the Pope is rooting against Manifest Destiny?
Yeah, true. I have to believe like that was a little jab there, like
Yeah.
making JP2 hold a sign that says "Manifest Destiny sucks ass."
Yeah, but anyway, this is the issue that gives a lot because it's based about the pay-per-view. We get a lot of the two announcers, Leon Sullivan and Mondo Larry Hondo, which I'll go ahead and tell you who they're based on. They're based on Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura, respectively.
Yeah,
That
and
was and they play up the parts perfectly.
yeah, Mondo is the heel commentator, and like immediately he's just rooting for the aliens and being like, "Well, I for one welcome our WrestleTopian overlords."
Yeah, he's all in. Before we cut back to the train, and I wrote my note about this is that Don's death is so sudden and instant from the fall. No dying words, no nothing. He was just dead on impact.
Which is yeah,
Yeah,
hurts.
like we kind of just we don't. There's absolutely no doubt that he's dead.
Yeah, which is kind of like it's kind of this
Yeah,
wild
and
thing
I
for
also
Rory
note
'cause
Rory landing on his bad knee when he jumps out of the train car.
Yup, yup. They really go hard on that knee, which I think is a
Mhm.
cool little like attention to detail. Um, and then Dominatrix goes for him too, and
But
she's
anyway,
like,
you were saying about Don's death.
"Oh, well, yeah." With Don's death, I think what's cool about like the suddenness of it is like Rory is the type of person who like he can't deal with things. He always has to like run away and give himself more time. Here, he didn't have more time. He watched Don get pushed off the train, and by the time Don came back, he was dead. And um, Rory didn't get
Yeah,
to
kind of breaking up with you there.
Oh, basically, um, Rory Rory runs away from things, um, to give himself more
Mhm.
time 'cause he doesn't wanna, like, deal with the finality of things. He kinda runs and doesn't look back. He can't deal with that, with things coming to an end, with things coming to a conclusion, with actions having consequences. And here with Don, he doesn't get that extra time. He watches Don get pushed off the train, and then next time he sees Don, he's dead, and he didn't get that extra time,
Mhm.
which I think is a,
Yeah,
like, neat
he
little
can't
character
run
beat.
away from this.
Yeah, and he doesn't get his,
He
like he
runs
doesn't
away
get to
from
even
everything.
he doesn't even get it prolonged. He doesn't even get to have final moments
Mhm.
with Don. It just happens, and that's kinda like one of the first times in his life he's, like, really had to deal with consequences. Um,
Yeah,
and it was while
but
his,
then
like,
yeah,
friend saved him.
yeah, we were about to say it as he gets in a fight with Dominatrix, and I put Don's death fuels Rory's rage.
True, and I also appreciate Dominatrix, like, doing all this shit that, like, again, they're leaning into, like, her characters, like, like, kinky, like, she's pulling Rory's hair, and she keeps screaming, "Submit." Um,
But he turns the tables on her and makes her submit.
yup. Well, he doesn't make her submit, he makes her say, "I quit," which is
So
fun.
close enough.
Um,
But
but then the train gets
then
derailed. Oh, no.
yeah, and then he gets kidnapped and goes into a barn, and then the reveal that Billy Mangrum and Linda were turncoats the entire time.
Yeah, which, like I kind of question, like, we don't really like get a whole lot of explanation for that, like why they were in the pocket of the aliens and like why the
Mhm.
3Ds tagged along even if they weren't in on it. Like, I'm kind of confused as to that plot point, but like it
I
still makes for
look
a
into
fun little
that.
like cheesy twist. But yeah, either way, we have our turncoats, ultimate twists, Linda's sad face about having to like betray
Yeah.
Rory.
Yeah, I kinda missed that, but I'll go ahead and pick up on my
Yeah.
thoughts of it, is that I wrote, "The reveal of the betrayal by Mangrum and Linda shocked me the first time I read it, but looking at it again, there were signs. The WrestleTopians were always able to find Rory and company. The double trap at the bar, at the strip club, and in the truck felt contrived the first time around." I also wrote how much of Rory's conversation with Linda was a work to get him to storm out of the bar, and how much was a shoot about her real feelings and frustrations.
There was something there too. The first time they show up, they beat up all the
Mhm.
aliens and we there I s there was a background shot that kinda, like, made me scratch my head where, like, the aliens that they had just beaten up were kind of, like, standing in the background as Don and Lindrum were having a conversation about, like, what steps were next. I'm like, "Wait, they just, like, ran away or they just got knocked out or something. Why are they, like, standing in the background?" And you could see that as, like, oh, they were there because they weren't ever actually a threat, it
Mhm.
was all, like, staged. But for me, it's like, I'm just slightly confused as to, like, why they're in the pocket of these people and, like,
This is going disaster. Our internet stream is disastrous, so give me a minute. We're gonna try this again.
okie dokie.
Like it's like we're sputtering. Yeah, but you were talking about how like the aliens just kind of gave up after Mangrum shows up.
Yeah, they gave up, like, they're standing in the background, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Why? Weren't they, like, running away/ slash knocked out? Why are they just kinda, like, standing there watching?" And, like, that now
Mhm.
makes sense as, like, it was all a plot. But the other thing is too is, like, with Mangrum and Linda, I don't, like, fully understand why they're in the pocket of the aliens, especially, like, they
Mhm.
brought I guess, the 2Ds or the 3Ds along, and the 3Ds weren't in on it, and I don't know why they would allow, like, such like unabashed baby faces to come along and like help legitimately. So
Yeah,
like
I
that part kind of confused me, but like, in the grand scheme
mhm.
of things, whatever. It's like, the goofy plot twist of the 80s,
Yeah,
80s, 90s movie.
I guess I took best I could take it is that like Drayson got a hold of him before, and like Mangrum was probably easily convinced because he's a Carney promoter, and
Mhm.
Linda, it was probably an opportunity for her to get some revenge on Rory. Yeah, I don't know why they would have brought 3D along because they weren't in on it at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. That's a fair bit of kind of like subtextual reading. It's just kind of
Mhm.
like that kind of confuses me, but like it's effective as like, it keeps the plot chugging along, so sure.
Yeah, it's there to add one more bit of like tension of like, is he going to make the show?
Mhm.
Plus, you
Uh
get like the big shock reveal of the whole thing.
Yeah, Rory's all chained up now, beaten up, and he and Linda have a confrontation. Linda's trying to apologize, and
And
Rory
he and
tells
he
her to just go. But what's interesting about it, and because at first it kind of bothered me, they kind of play it as like Linda's all of a sudden like tearful, apologetic, even though like
Mhm,
aside from this betrayal, like everything in their relationship up till now has been like Rory fucked it up.
mhm.
So it feels
I,
weird that
I
like
had
they're
that
having
I had
Linda
that same thought. Mhm.
but then Rory has a line about, "Just go, I'd do it to you."
Yeah, I wrote
Um,
that line down too. It was like,
which kind of then makes it make sense of, like, they're not just framing Linda as, like, all of a sudden, like, tearful,
yeah.
apologetic, even though he's not apologetic.
Rory's also trying to self-sacrifice as a way of an apology.
Yeah. Um, so I can go along with that a little bit.
Yeah,
Um
but it's okay because Harem Scarum makes the face turn.
Yes, without his dominatrix to tell him what to do. The story of Kodiak Jack escaping his confinement must have inspired him, and now he's broken free of his like sub mask. And we see his like real face, and he's joined the 3Ds.
He's gonna be
Um,
DeAndre now.
yes, he's gonna be DeAndre. And they beat up all the alien wrestlers and get Rory out of there, and it's very cute. And
Yeah, and
Rory and has like a
I
little put
wrote
on
the
the
line.
sunglasses moment.
Yeah, I wrote that line. I wrote that line because, like, at the beginning of the show, because I remember the first issue, he talks to Dick Grayson as he's leaving. He's like, "I am the show."
Mhm.
When he talks about the show will go on or whatever, and at this issue, he calls it back and he goes, "Brothers, we are the show."
Yes.
Good times. But then the rest of the issue takes place at the pay-per-view. I made a
Yeah.
joke about how the fans are chanting, "You suck, Dick."
Yeah.
Commas are important.
Commas are important. I actually, like, didn't really get that when I read it through, but, like, now that you say that out loud, it makes sense. I just saw it as, like, "You suck dick," and I was like, "Wow, those fans are just, like, going really explicit." And then but now you say that, I'm like, "Oh, wait, yeah, Dick's his name."
Yeah, it's Dick. It's double entendres.
Uh-huh.
And then like he tries to Dick Grayson tries to be like, well, Rory ain't here.
Tries to play
So,
good
but
crowd, and
but,
that doesn't
but
work.
thankfully, Mini Macho arrives to cause it to buy some time.
Yup. Mini
And
Macho comes in,
we
does
get
some
one
time
more. He
buying,
beats up all the aliens.
and he sees a light pop, and he's like, "Is that my aunt?" Um So, cute little final moment for him. He kicks
Yeah,
some ass, and then Rory makes his triumphant return in his old
dopest
drip.
entrance ever.
I know, in his old drip holding a fucking, like, Earth flag. Um, and he signs goddamn Nelson Mandela's Rory's number 1 fan shirt. Was
Yep.
like, that's of all the world leaders to include, I'm like, "Oh my god, that's just, like, a whole new level of ridiculous," and I love it.
Yeah, and I made a note that Rory cuts his promo where he basically kayfabes his reign as galactic champion. Like instead, like he plays up the idea that he's been like all over these alien planets.
I know, it's so awesome, and, like, that's the part where I was really like, "What is kayfabe in this world?" Because they're treating it like like, he comes in and treats it like everything here is kayfabe, even though, like, everybody knows that, like, the aliens are actually a threat, I guess, maybe? I don't know, it's so wild, but at this point, I'm just kind of along for the ride, and, like, the logic doesn't really matter to me anymore. I'm just here for the ride at this point, and it's so
Yeah,
fun.
I made a note that there was a Columbus shout out. I live in Columbus.
Yes, yes.
Is that Dick Grayson tries to take the show off the air and replace it with the main event from the Ruckus in Columbus.
Uh-huh.
But the producer's like, "Fuck you, Grayson, I quit."
Yeah.
I was like,
With his pages having been tied up by 3D, which is so funny.
yeah, and then we already talked about it, but the fight sequence between Rory and Destiny is amazing.
It's so good. Like we kind of I was alluding to it without, doing spoilery stuff a lot in the first half of like here's where the action's awesome. Like um you see all the little details of like how they move, how their hits impact each other, the way they're like grabbing each other, um, the big McLarge huges of the design. They just get like increasingly ripped throughout this entire fucking match. Um, but then we start getting issues with Rory's knee, um, until he eventually gets put in a chokehold, and as he's about to get counted out, um he whites
He
out and sees Don.
he's at the pearly gates, as I put it.
Mhm.
As
Yeah.
he talks, it is his a chance to apologize to Don because
Yep.
he's had his shot to do it to Linda, but because of Don's death, he didn't get to do it for Don. So this is his way to do that. We get to meet Swamp Gas Charlie and his turkeys.
Yep. Um, which I would say like in a way that's like a slap in the face to the fact that he like, earlier was very
Mhm,
purposely not allowed to apologize to Don, like, some
mhm,
things are too late. But I feel like at this point, like he's kind of earned it where he has, really made peace with the fact that he used to be a giant turd and he's a lot
mhm,
more introspective and he's here to like do the right thing. And so it's not going to be
mhm.
some cheap like on the deathbed, Don,
Yeah.
Don, I'm so sorry. It's he's about to pass out and
Mhm,
Don is there and he can kind of be at peace with himself and without any crisis really he's in the midst of, he's still able to say, I screwed up and I'm sorry. And that's a sweet little
yeah,
moment.
it
It's
was.
very like Dumbledore and Harry at the
Oh,
fucking like
I did think
King's
of that
Cross
too.
esque. I was like, oh my
Some
God.
King's Cross shit.
Yeah.
King's
Even to the point where like Don's like, you got to go back, buddy. You got to make a decision. You either got to go back or stay here. Like, you don't got much time left.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But help is on the way. But then yeah, and here is what is kind of like the biggest shock of this whole book for me
Yes.
is we get with the Matt. He wakes up. He's having the heroic comeback. He's got it. He's got Manifest Destiny, and the knee buckles again one last time, and Manifest Destiny pins Rory 1-2-3.
Yep.
Manifest Destiny wins the climactic match.
Yes.
My whole notes for this match before we move on is Mangrum has outlived his usefulness because there's also a bit during the match where Dick Drayson swears to have Mangrum taken care of for completely failing to stop Rory from showing up. Throwing Landell over the top rope should be a DQ. How old school of rules are we using here? Because that is, I assume you wouldn't have understood that because that is a very old school wrestling rule that that throwing someone intentionally over the top rope and out of the ring was a disqualification in way older wrestling.
Yeah, don't the commentators say something about that?
Yes, they make. Leon Sullivan tries to make an argument about it, and I think that Mondo, either during this or another thing that Manifest Destiny does, he's just like, well, that's legal in WrestleTopian law.
The really fun thing about this entire thing that this entire match is we have the commentators giving their 2 cents the entire time, and they really play up how inconsistent the commentators are with when they care about rules and shit based on what the turn of events is in favor of. It's in favor of their heel or face.
Yeah, Mondo is totally okay with this over the top rope DQ thing.
Yeah,
but then Rory throws Manifest Destiny into the guardrail on the outside of the ring, and he's like, "Hey, that's a disqualification. What is the ref doing in there?"
Yeah, it's so I love how they play up the total unabashed bias of the of the face and heel commentators.
Yeah, just keeping my notes. There's the reoccurring knee injury. Rory getting one last convo with Don at the pearly gates as he's passing out to the sleeper hold. I'm proud of you, Rory. Always have been. Not going to lie, choked up a bit there. I'm glad Rory was able to properly apologize to Don, too. Oh, no, his knee buckled. To say I was fucking shocked to see Manifest Destiny pick up the win, it was an understatement.
Yeah, that was the wildest part, is Manifest Destiny getting the dub. But
then the defectors are like, screw this.
Yeah. They go in and start beating up Manifest Destiny anyway, and then in perhaps the biggest twist, Rory sees this and gets in the ring and starts fighting with Manifest Destiny against the defectors.
Yep, and then they do manage to get an upper. I wrote that the aliens are going to Pillmanize Rory's knee because they're going to take the steel chair to his knee. But then Linda arrives with Don's old cane and cracks it over Polaris's head.
Yup,
and knocks him out.
And she also delivers a decisive kick to Sonny's face.
I thought it was really funny that the commentators apparently don't know who Linda is, which I guess makes sense. She doesn't look anything like she would have Spanish Rose 15 years ago. But they're like, who is this mysterious woman? I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was great. I did notice that too. And again, I keep harping on this. All the attention to detail in this thing is delightful.
Mm-hmm. And then they get the double team on Jim Cooley, and they beat him up. And then Dick Drayson comes down to try to weasel his way out of this one more time. And then I loved it because Rory is threatening Dick, and he's like, think of everything I've done for you. And Roy's like, yeah, Dick, I do owe you one. And then he pile drives him.
which again is, for this era, feels very McMahon versus Stone Cold-esque, to the point even where the heel commentators, rooting for the bad boss. It is a ton of fun to kind of see.
And then you get the big moment of after it's all said and done, it's like, what's going to happen to the Earth? And Manifest Destiny is like, I won. I am the rightful champion. But you have my respect, Rory Landell, so I'm going to leave Earth alone.
Yeah.
I have other places to conquer.
I will not manifest this destiny.
No, sir. And so it's all kind of the happy ending. Him and Linda reunite again.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth is saved. Everyone's happy except for Mondo, I guess.
Yeah.
He was really ready for those intergalactic overlords.
Yeah.
He's
really sad.
And then we do get a nice moment a little bit at the end with Rory's mom. We get the reveal that Rory's mom was watching the pay-per-view, and she kind of got to see her son be the savior of us all.
Yep. The end. And then we get two final like extra pages. One that Leo Sullivan, the face commentator, and Cecil Steedmont, the former kayfabe commissioner, like bickering back and forth over like the pay-per-view. And
and you get Mondo answering
Mondo's mailbag. being a douche about it, of course.
Yeah, I thought I thought they were fine, but I didn't really get into them as much as the other ones because it felt like we hit the emotional climax of the real story here, and I just wasn't really interested in more like.
Yeah, no, it felt weird to retroactively go back, but I did enjoy the Mondo bits just because he's like the way they wrote his douchery was really funny.
Yeah, and so before we kind of get into any more, before we kind of wrap up, which this episode might be one of our longest episodes.
This is definitely our longest episode. We've been
going
I did not expect
that at all. To be
That's honest. What happens when you and I tend to go like moment by moment for a lot of this stuff. So when there's like 6 comic book issues worth of moment, technically 7. There's a lot to cover.
I guess you're right, but yeah, let's quickly go back over the rest. I wrote my wrestling references list.
Please.
Yes, I will repeat the ones I already did, but I won't really explain them. It's the American Wrestling Federation, Boy Scout Bob Schultz, Shipwreck Rapinski, Dick Drayson, Leo Sullivan and Mondo Larry Hondo. I wrote Cousin Orville as Hillbilly Jim if he was a heel. Cecil Steedmont, Lord Alfred Hayes if he was a heel. Terry Landell, I wrote as Lex Luger, ? Because of the torture rack thing. That's Luger's move. Ivan Kolesnikov and Iron Hussein, Gaspard Dubois and Pierre Renault, the American Gigolos, El Santissimo, Dominatrix, Fatback Billy Mangrum, Rock Hard Ricky Landry, 3D, Tommy Attitude. When he was in the pay-per-view poster, I was like, oh, that's Tommy Dreamer. Because of the extreme, it's like the Extreme Outlaw Championship, which, by the way, that's ECW. I was like, that is ECW.
Yeah.
As the joke. Big Papa's Pump, Smoking Guns. I took Jay Warcloud to be kind of a Chief Jay Strongbow reference. I mean, it is ultimately probably just any Native American gimmick, but because of Jay, I think like Chief Jay Strongbow.
Yeah.
Warcloud and talks about them being curtain raisers. I was like, oh, it's like curtain jerkers.
Yeah.
Sam Palatnik. That would be Sam Muchnick, the longtime president of the NWA, who I like to credit, who could basically be credited as why did the NWA last for 50 years? Because Sam Muchnick was president for 40, to put it like that. And SummerSlamberation is like SummerSlam.
Oh yeah, the SummerSlam. I noticed that. I love how it was like the SummerSlam of fun.
Yeah, I know, the SummerSlamathon.
Yeah,
just barely avoiding copyrights.
Yeah, I know. Look, they can't all be clever, all right?
Yeah, listen, it's hard to get a better name than SummerSlam.
Yeah. I can't fault them for that. But just again, the multi-layered delight of this comic is not only that it is so entrenched in what it like in wrestling culture, that everything is a reference, and it tracks like I mentioned earlier, it tracks the progression of wrestling, like as a business, like kind of its peaks and valleys. Like you could see like stadium sizes vary with the era, and kind of tracks onto like what WWE's like audience size was at any given like point in the era, how it reflects different aspects of the business, and and all this terminology and all this sort of stuff. Like, this was written with so much love for the craft, and obviously by people who know so much about it and like put so much attention into the detail. But on top of that, it didn't feel like some sort of like cash in to get the wrestling fans with a whole bunch of references, because
Mhm.
the art was really good and the writing was actually like really smart. There's a lot of subtlety in there that you don't pick up on your first time going through it, but then upon revisit you're like, oh yeah, all this kind of gets hinted at, like through penning and payoff or through symbolism or stuff like that. It's all really well done. It's a love letter to the craft and a love letter to the art of comic books, I think,
Yeah,
with
I
kind of
would
how it
I would
presents itself.
yeah, I would agree with that completely. I don't really feel the need to reiterate because we already kind of talked about our overall thoughts.
Mhm.
But I kind of just want to end it off with thanking Ed Cunel
Yes.
and very much for, I assume I don't know if he was the one who reached out to us over Twitter, but he was the one who emailed us the full book, as well
Yes.
as Matt Inton was the other writer.
Yup.
Thank you very much to both of you. You made a phenomenal book, and thank you for asking us to read the book and talk about it. It was
Yeah,
definitely a pleasure for us.
we're so honored. We hope you
Mhm.
guys get your future releases. Please write more because this was phenomenal. We
This
both
is
had an utter
yeah,
yeah.
they've written for video game series before, according to
Oh,
their
nice.
paper, but this is their first comic book.
Yeah, no, please do more because you guys have a distinct talent for detail work and for like really intelligent writing. Like, this could have been dumb and pulpy by every sense of the word, and like aesthetically it was, but
Mhm.
there was so much more under the surface that just we got to really appreciate going through it.
Yeah.
Um, I cannot recommend this book enough to our audience. Please, God, check this out if you ever get the chance. Support the official release, whenever possible. We'll definitely
Mhm.
be updating you guys if we see more info on it. Um, and just, oh my God, this was a blast. And like, it's things like this, love letters to the art form, that really put into perspective for me like why I've come to enjoy consuming wrestling media to the point that I have. Because when you get things like this that really exemplify the best the medium has to offer in a really affectionate way, you realize just what a not only like a cultural touchstone this is for as niche as it is, you realize kind of the very distinct way in which it exists and the very like joyful celebratory thing it can be when done well. But you're just reminded of the utter fun that can be had by tuning in to this wild, wacky bullshit world, um, and just kind of enjoying the ride and all of the really interesting, thoughtful, emotionally evocative stories that can be told
Mhm.
through a whole bunch of people getting in a ring and punching each other a lot.
I agree. Uh, I would love to do this again. I don't know if these as long as these episodes are, so I guess we might leave it up to. We'll see how
Yeah,
might react to it. But
or like
like,
or like or like refine the formula to an extent,
yeah,
Maybe don't go like so beat by beat on the story
yeah,
analysis.
yeah,
That's on
yeah,
us,
yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah, but there are other really good wrestling comics out there that I
mm,
know of, especially the Boom Studios WWE comics. So it's just
mm,
something we could definitely revisit another time to try this medium again.
absolutely.
So next time, I said it at the front half for the benefit of those people who might have left from the spoiler hat before we did spoilers. But next time, we finish Summer of Punk from and our journey as SummerSlam 2011. CM Punk, who won the title at Money in the Bank and left the company right after. John Cena, who won the WWE title in Punk's absence.
Mhm.
Two legitimate WWE champions. And after SummerSlam, there will be only one. CM Punk versus John Cena 2. Let's do it.
Oh my god. The end of a second era is it's so wild that we finished one era a couple weeks ago. Now we're at the end of another, um, and especially one that whose journey I've enjoyed as much as Summer of Punk. So this one's going to be another interesting one to kind of go in on
Mhm.
and see how they close it all out.
Yep.
Um, but that is a topic to explore for next time.
Yes. Now, David, let's hit the plugs.
Yes, sir. Alrighty. My friends, my dear, dear friends, thank you all for joining us for another very special episode, very, very special in this case, of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. If you are a return listener, welcome back. We are so, so happy to have you with us. We love getting to share this journey with all of you. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are elated to have you amongst our ranks of noobs and knockouts alike.
Especially after such a long episode. Thank you
Especially
very
after
much for being here this whole
thank you for
time.
slogging through with us. Yes. Not to say the book was a slog, just we are very long-winded people.
We're the slogs.
Yeah, we're the slogs here. No, but no, seriously. If you'd like to continue to join us, both in our sloggy and non-sloggy times, there are
We're
many
usually
ways you
much
can.
shorter, I swear.
Yeah. There are many ways you can do so. One, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. We are the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, give us that sweet, sweet engagement that we love ever so much. Help those metrics go up, up, up. We love it. We love it. We love it. If you prefer the purely listening route, without having to load a still image on your screen, totally understandable. You can find us on 3 of the best places to stream your podcast, which are Spotify, Apple, and Google. Follow us, give us ratings, subscribe to us, all that good stuff. Again, we just love having people join us and tell us what they think of our lovely little show. When it comes to our socials, you can find us on Twitter at Noobs and Knox Pod. That's Noobs, the letter N, Knox Pod. We tweet out nice little memes. We interact with the community and the fandom at large. And Austin live tweets wrestling as it happens week by week. My friend, what is on the schedule for this upcoming week?
Yes, as usual, I am watching AEW Dynamite every single week and live tweeting it because why not monetize all the wrestling that I watch for the sake of this podcast? But in addition, we watch the every WWE, AEW, and Impact pay-per-view. And this month we got 2 coming. We have WWE WrestleMania Backlash featuring 6 matches on the card. That will be happening. It will be May 16th, the day this episode drops. As of now, there are 6 matches on the card. Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre versus Braun Strowman for the WWE title. Bianca Belair versus Bayley for the SmackDown Women's title. Rhea Ripley versus Asuka versus Charlotte Flair for the Raw Women's title. The Dirty Dogs versus Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Roman Reigns versus Cesaro for the Universal title. And Damian Priest versus The Miz in a lumberjack match.
Ooh.
Now, then we have Double or Nothing, AEW's first annual pay-per-view happening May 30th. And the match so far, we only have 2 matches on the card. It is still a few weeks away. But so far, we have Hikaru Shida versus Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, respective title for the women's title. And Kenny Omega will face either Pac or Orange Cassidy for the AEW World's title.
Oh, that sounds like good stuff. Y'all better check it out. Austin gives really, really good commentary on this stuff. It's really worth checking out. Please, God. On top of that, you can email us at at noobsandknockoutspod@gmail.com. The word and this time noobs and knockoutspod@gmail.com. We just love hearing from people. Slide into those DMs, as it were. Give us feedback. Say hi. Tell us how delightfully sexy our voices are. All that good stuff. Just again, we always love hearing from the people who join us every week. And finally, you can follow us, subscribe to us on our Patreon. $1 a month gives you early access to episodes and a shout out at the end of each episode.
Indeed. See you guys next time.
Hasta luego.